Hey, what is up YouTube? This is the Mermail Master coming at you guys from the Teen Time Riders Yugioh channel today with a video that I don't think anyone has uploaded before, or a type of video that no one has uploaded before. In today's video, I am going to be doing a reptile type monster showcase. Now, a lot of people have favorite archetypes or favorite monsters in the game, but for me, I personally have a favorite type, monster type, and that type is reptiles. I know every single reptile out there and all of the different effects of each one, and I just think it is a really cool archetype of monsters, kind of, you know, in that sense of things. And as you guys saw in my most recent deck profile, I tried to keep it pretty simplified with the Venom monsters that you run. So you just have your snakes and serpents and boas. But if you remember, I mentioned that you do have the capability to sub in other reptiles into this deck. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase to you guys some of the different possible reptiles that you can throw into a build, different plays that you can make with those reptiles, and some of the beneficial kind of aspects of how you can do things. Now, as you're well aware, these original Venom monsters don't really gain you, actual effects, but they do have like benefits such as correct leveling or, correct typing or different things like that, that I think we can gain in other reptile monsters. So let's get started here. The first reptile that I'd like to demonstrate to you guys is one of my personal favorites. This is Iperia. Now, Iperia was a card that was released way back in, I think it was the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Run by, the Freaky Fish guy or someone of that nature. But basically, when this card is summoned by any way, shape, or form, you draw a card. He's under 1,000 attacks, so you can get him out with both your back to the front or Monster Reborn. You can normal summon him to the field, or you can get him back with Limit Reverse, which is super, super awesome because what you can do is you can just keep looping him each turn to gain yourself an extra draw. And that's something that the original Venom snakes don't really do. So consider running 1 or 2 Iperia in a Venom deck if you want a little bit of that extra push and a little bit of extra card advantage. So we're going to pop this guy up here. Now, the next cards that I wanted to kind of discuss here were sort of an engine type of card. So we have here some cards that benefit off of being discarded. Now, what do I mean by being discarded? Well, Snake Rain and other cards discard and send things to the graveyard, and so you want to have, I guess, the benefit of some cards that have a similar capability or can plus off of that effect. So, the card I want to show you right now is Danger Tsuchinoko. Now, Tsuchinoko was a card I didn't run in my build because I kind of cut down on the reptiles. However, this is a great way to get your reptiles to your graveyard, especially if you have things like, snake monster in your hand, Vennominaga in your hand, and Tsuchinoko is also beneficial because he can discard himself and be an extra body on board in case you want to do like some link plays or something like that. Comboing off as well as a card that gains advantage while being discarded are Light Serpents. Now, Light Serpents are, they were way back in Photon Shockwave, one of the very first sets that I went to a sneak peek for, and basically, if they're sent from the hand to the graveyard, and this is, in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be discarded like your Tsuchinoko. If they're sent, you basically get to activate this effect to special summon the Light Serpent to your board. And the fact that it can't be used as a synchro material is kind of immaterial. You're not really using that effect for that reason. This was meant to be like an XYZ card for Giga Brilliant way back in the day, but discarding a reptile to the grave and then immediately getting an XYZ, immediately getting like a link material at least on board is quite awesome. So I think those are some of the key plays that you can make in that respect. So now I'd like to move on to discuss some of the different engines that you can run. And we're going to start with one engine in particular, and that is the Reptilian engine. There were two brand new Reptilian main deck monsters recently released in Burst of Destiny, and I'm so excited to see them. Those two monsters are Reptilian Niami and Reptilian Coatl. Now, I'll explain both of them in pretty big detail. Now, for a Vennominaga deck, getting reptiles to the graveyard is something that matters quite a lot. You know, you want reptiles that can easily move through your deck. You know, they won't clog up your hand, and they can help you make plays. And Reptilian Niami is a card that you want to consider probably running it at least 2 or 3, because it doesn't have to be normal summon. You can actually utilize its effect to discard it to the graveyard to target a monster your opponent controls and make that monster's attack point 0. Now, this is really great for Reptilian strategies, but it's even better for you because it's an effortless extra 500 body in your graveyard for your Vennominaga that doesn't really have any kind of restrictions except for having to target the monster that you activate with it. You can even discard this card with for cost, so even if the effect is negated, you still get this card to the graveyard, which is fantastic. And Coatl is awesome because it's a level 4 tuner that has almost no restrictions. It can be treated as a non-tuner, allows you to go into synchro plays, for instance, if you're interested in summoning either the Reptilian Synchro or the Reptilian Link monster. You know, you have the option to go into a Hydra with this play. Now, why is this important? Because if you have Nami, Coatl, and Hydra, you can have the ability to send them to the graveyard, and this is 3 reptiles. If you then take the Hydra and link it off into something else, you have another reptile on board. So it's really quite beneficial for just cycling through and link climbing so that you can get more reptiles on board very easily. Now, granted, guys, if you are going to run a small Reptilian engine, I would consider these guys over most of the other cards that you might be thinking of. Primarily because, you know, it may conflict with Card of Demise, so you may have to think about some different draw spells or draw traps or things like that you'd like to run. I'm going to go over a couple of other reptiles that I think, Reptilians that I think you should know about. Great level 4 option is Reptilian Skilla for, you know, running over things, but in many ways, shape, and forms, it's literally just a beater. Reptilian Viper allows you to take the monster that Niami makes a 0, normal summon this card, and then steal the monster. And you don't even have to synchro summon with it, although Viper is technically a tuner, but it is something good to know. One of the other cards, I think, and one of my personal favorite new reptiles here is one Reptilian Lamia. And you can choose to run this at 1 or 2. I wouldn't recommend running it at 3, but basically, it can special summon itself to the field by you taking the damage equal to the attack power of a monster you'd like to turn to 0, and then it itself acts as a tuner to go for your Hydra play. But the other reason that Lamia is actually really good is because you have Reptilian Vasky. Now, Vasky was way popular back in the Dracosac era, because what you could use Vasky for was to basically tribute the 2 tokens that Dracosac made, because they're both 0 attack tokens, and then pop Dracosac himself with Vasky's effect. Now, the other reason that Vasky is so great is because what you're able to do is, there's some monsters that, you know, can't be targeted or can't be destroyed or whatever. You're unable to remove them from the field. A card, you know, think along the lines of Malicious Bane, right? You know, if your opponent summons a Malicious Bane in defense mode, a Vennominaga deck is kind of hard-pressed to deal with that. However, if you reduce the attack power of that monster to 0 with Niami or Lamia, and then you tribute over that monster with Reptilian Vasky, then you pretty much remove the monster from the field and prevent it from coming back to harm you in the future. So That's one of the beneficial plays. One other play that I would consider is utilizing Gardna, for instance, with Reptilian Recoil, or running more things like Reptilian Spawn to allow you to grab more tokens to place Vasky on board. It sometimes will be difficult for you to generate enough zero attack monsters for your Vasky play, I think it's definitely important to consider. The last card I'd like to point out to you guys in a Reptilian engine is the following card. This one is a brand new, super rare Reptilian Ramifications. Basically, discard a card, and then you can target a monster, make the attack power 0, and then, do some other things with your plays. Like, for instance, add a Reptilian spell or trap, or add a Reptilian monster from your deck to your hand. I have been split on this card in a Vennominaga deck, but in a Reptilian deck, this is one of the best pieces of new support that you could ask for. So that is it for discussions on Reptilians. So we've gone through 3 different types of Serpent engines that you can run, and now we are moving on. So while people may want me to discuss the Ogdoadic engine, I'm waiting to do that in due time, but I think we'll get to it after I discuss the next Reptile engine that I'd like to show to you. Now, one of the monsters in Reptilians that people don't really run a lot is this guy here. This is Reptilian Gardna. Now, Gardna is great with the field spell because he comes to the field as a natural 0 attack monster. When he's popped, and this includes by your cards or your opponent's cards, you can search a Reptilian from your deck to your hand. So I think of him as a far more reliable searcher, believe it or not, than your Reptilian Ramifications. Because you can bring him back. You can bring him back to the field. You can pop him by your own effects, like a Torrential or Offering to the Snake Deity, which you already run. And he helps gain you extra advantage in certain situations, stealing monsters and whatnot. But there's another reason why I have Gardna in here. Some of the old mainstay reptiles people used to run way back in the day were these guys. This guy is Lion Alligator, a nice 1900 attack power beater. And of course, we now have this guy here. This is Screech. Now, Screech was probably, when I got out of the game, guys, this was before Konami released Ogdoadics, or they released the new Reptilian support. And so Screech and Lion Alligator were actually some of the best monsters you could run in a Vennominaga deck. Because Screech has an ability, when he's destroyed by battle, ditch 2 water monsters to the graveyard. So what you do is you'd summon Screech, you maybe run Lion Alligator or something like that, and then you ditch more copies of Screech and Lion Alligator to the graveyard to boost up your Vennominaga. What I'm saying is this might be a slower combo now, but I think I've found a way that you guys may still be able to run Screech, but also to gain some extra benefit from Screech. All of these monsters here are level 4, so you have the ability to run maybe 2 or 3 copies of Kage to Kage to add for some extra rank 4 engine capability. A rank 4 engine is a very, very potent engine. There's lots of new cards. You think like Time Thief Redoer, for instance, can provide you a lot of advantage over the course of a duel for relatively little investment. But the real card that I want to discuss is another card that came out in Burst of Destiny, and that is Nightsword Serpent at 3. Now, why do I mention this engine, guys? Well, Nightsword Serpent is one of the coolest cards that you can run because it has the effect that when it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon it immediately to the board. So that means you send it to the graveyard, like from your deck to the graveyard by card effect, and you immediately get it on the board. So if you have a Gardna or a Screech in your hand, or a Lion Alligator, for instance, you can normal summon those guys to the field. And guess what you have when you have both of those on the field? That's right, guys. This is a 2 This is a water reptile engine, which means you've got access to Bahamut Shark and Totally Awesome. Pretty sweet, right? So, as you can see, there are lots of different ways to run reptiles in a Vennominaga deck that aren't necessarily the types of reptiles that you might consider running in the original type of strategy. Granted, I have a whole bunch of Venom monsters in the deck, but as you guys can see, you can easily sub out engines and place in other engines for access to all sorts of different XYZ and Link monsters. Given the release of a bunch of new reptiles, the speed of the decks and stuff have sped up, and you can now have access to more stuff than ever. So as I mentioned, for instance, you have access to Reptilian Hydra, the Synchro monster. You have access to the Link equivalent, Reptilian Echidna, which is a fantastic searcher, guys, that you really should be running at 2 to 3 in any new non-character reptile extra deck. Of course, the popular Feral Imps is a great option for level 4 builds such as this, as another option to go into besides Bahamut Shark that can gain you access to lots more cards. And I'm sure you guys will think of other water XYZ materials such as right and left hand shark that you guys could throw in here as well. You know, you combine them together with this particular card, one of my all-time favorite new cards, guys. This is Reptilian Melusine, which basically sits on the field, makes everything that activates an effect 0, and if you synchro summon it using only reptile monsters, guess what, guys? It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. A monster with staying power that has the ability to make a bunch of things attack powers 0 and will stick around on the board for all sorts of shenanigans. Guys, an unbelievable card that I think you definitely should consider running. I wanted to go through one last engine with you before we sign off. Now, keep in mind, guys, I may do a video to discuss Ogdoadics in the future, as I mentioned. However, as of this current point in time, I'm looking only to discuss different engines that you guys can run that you might not have been aware of prior. The last engine I want to discuss with you guys coming up here is this engine, guys. This here is Aliens. Now, why do I bring these particular cards out and not others? So, I've been a big fan of Aliens for a very long time, and Octopus Eric Demore is a big fan of Aliens as well. Now, most people want to utilize Aliens to summon, you know, Alien Ammonite into Alien Shock Trooper into Cosmic Fortress Golgar. That's not where I see the deck going, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. When running an Alien deck, that's a great play, but the reason I have these particular two is because how Konami designed them. They designed Stealth Burster specifically to work with a card like Snake Rain. So running an Alien Ammonite, while great, takes up a normal summon, can be easily negated, and will often not net you significant advantage. I've found, you know, stray Ammonites on the field to be a very, very big disadvantage and to not gain you any kind of advantage whatsoever in terms of advancing the game state to a point that you want. The Golgar play is way too dependent on A counters. However, the Stealth Buster play is not. Stealth Buster is a nice 1700 body on board, which is larger than most of your reptiles, so he creates himself as a good beater. But what he also does that I really like is that when he's sent to the graveyard by any way, shape, or form, you place 2 A counters on a monster you control. Cosmic Slicer 0 will allow you to take advantage of the A counters you place on an opponent's monster to switch it into defense mode and negate its effects. This is a continuous effect that applies, that triggers if a monster on your opponent has A counters on it. It's just, you know, an if-then kind of proposition here. So you have Cosmic Slicer 0 negating monsters your opponent controls, while Stealth Burster loads them up with counters, and then you can use Stealth Burster's effect to pop things while it is in the graveyard. So you're assuming that you're always going to be on the defensive in a deck like this. So you need alien cards that allow you to generate and push for 8 counters and don't pull away from the specific engine you're trying to run. One last card I put in here is, I'll readily admit I don't have a copy of it, is the other XYZ, which is Alien Shock Trooper, Mighty Frame or X Frame or whatever it ends up being called, because it's a great way to ditch reptiles in your hand to the graveyard and add back, and add 8 counters to opponent's stuff. So you ditch a Vennominaga to the graveyard that's been bricked in your hand, and you add a whole bunch of counters to a monster your opponent controls, and then you link up into 0 using like a Stealth Burster or something like that, and you pretty much lock down the rest of the board. So as you guys can see, the aliens are mostly link monsters and then 1 main deck monsters, and 8 counters are not necessarily a alternating competing win condition, but rather a way to generate a bit of extra advantage from playing like a Vennominaga deck normally should. So guys, that's going to do it for my Reptile showcase video. If you liked the video, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. As I said, guys, we're looking to get up to a good number of likes. If we could do like 50 likes or something like that, I will be profiling my Vennominaga brand new first turn Vennominaga turbo deck profile that I built from the ground up, as I told you guys, using all new cards. And so if you guys want to see that, just let me know. And yeah, so thanks so much for watching, guys. This has been the Mermail Master with the Team Time Riders YouTube channel, and I'm signing out. Catch you guys next time. Peace.